Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into the story of a real outlier in the racing world. The Japanese champion, Agnes Digital.
A fascinating horse, truly unique.
Yeah, if you follow elite thoroughbred racing, you know the deal. Specialization is usually everything. Horses pick dirt or turf, a distance, and stick to it.
Right, that's how you get champions. They master one thing.
But Agnes Digital, he basically looked at that rule book and, well, tore it up. So our mission here is to unpack how this one horse managed to win G1s, the absolute top level on dirt, on turf, at home in Japan, and overseas, too. He broke all the conventions.
Let's dive in.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. Agnes Digital was born in the U.S. back in 1997. Not exactly bred in the purple, was he?
No, not at all. The sources describe him as just an ordinary chestnut colt. Medium size, nothing that screamed future superstar. He was pretty much overlooked.
Until one guy, trainer Toshiaki Shirai, saw something others missed. Maybe in his build, or maybe just that quiet way about him.
Yeah, Shirai was convinced. But getting hold of him wasn't straightforward. The American breeder apparently wasn't eager to sell him to Japan.
Right, and Shirai had to use a bit of psychology, didn't he? There's that great anecdote.
Oh, yeah. He basically told the breeder something like, you probably don't want to sell him because you're scared I'll make him famous in Japan.
A calculated gamble. And it worked. The breeder sold him.
It really sets the tone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Confidence, maybe a bit of audacity, high stakes right from the start.
They do mention his temperament quite a bit. Calm, gentle, clever, even as a youngster.
That quiet intelligence was definitely there. But nobody guessed just how physically adaptable he'd turn out to be.
So he makes his debut in 1999, and right away he kind of confirms what people probably expected. He starts on dirt.
Yep. And he wins his first big one, the Zen Nihon Nisayushin, which is, the top race for 2-year-olds on dirt in Japan.
So everyone thinks, okay, case closed, he's a dirt horse.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That seemed to be his niche. In 2000, he kept winning on dirt, picked up some G3s like the Unicorn Stakes. The box was ticked. Powerful dirt specialist.
But this is where Shirai, the trainer, throws that massive curveball.
He does. Completely against the grain, he decides to enter Agnes Digital in the Mile Championship, a G1 race, on turf.
A surface he'd never actually won on before, 0 wins on grass.
Exactly. And think about the physical difference. Dirt racing is about power, handling kickback, that grinding force. Turf needs smoothness, agility, a different kind of acceleration entirely. It's asking a lot.
The sources mention his gait might have been key, like somehow he could handle both surfaces without messing up his stride, which is incredibly rare.
It is. But even so, lining up for that turf G1, people must have thought Shirai was mad.
Oh, absolutely. And if you watch the race replay, it looks like they were right. Coming into the final stretch, he's just lost in the pack.
Way back. I think maybe 14 horses were still in front of him. It looked hopeless.
You can imagine the commentators practically writing him off right there. Well, that experiment failed.
But Shirai knew, or at least he believed, when a gap finally opened up, wow.
Sources call it a thunderous late kick. He just explodes, flies past everyone.
And wins it. Not just scrapes by, but wins it decisively. The dirt horse had just conquered an elite turf G1.
But incredibly, that was just like the prelude. 2001 was when things got really wild. He started challenging everything. Surfaces, distances, even borders.
Right. So 2001 starts, and first he goes back to dirt, just to remind everyone he still owns that surface. Wins the Mile Championship, Nambu High, another G1.
Okay, so versatility proven again. But Shirai wasn't just aiming for versatility anymore, was he? He seemed to be actively seeking out the biggest challenges.
He really was. Which brings us to the Tenno show, autumn.
Ah, the Tenno show. One of the crown jewels of Japanese racing. Prestigious turf race, 2,000 meters.
And a distance Agnes Digital had never, ever run before. So entering him wasn't just surprising, it was instantly controversial.
Understatement of the year, probably. His entry actually bumped out a massive local favorite, Kurofune.
Yeah, that did not go down well. Sources say there were actual boos from the crowd. Analysts were just shaking their heads. This looked like a vanity project messing up a major classic.
So with all that skepticism, all that pressure, what were the jockey's instructions from Shirai?
Almost unbelievably simple. Something like, run straight toward the grandstand, ignore everyone else.
Just focus. Block out the noise, block out the distance, the surface, just run.
Total belief in the horse's mentality, right?
Yeah.
And what happens next is just legendary.
He charges down that Tokyo straight, and he runs down the champion, TM Opera O.
TM Opera. I mean, you have to understand, This horse was turf royalty, considered almost unbeatable at that distance. For Agnes Digital to beat him,
It wasn't just a win, it was like a statement. A huge upset against the established order.
and historically massive too. It was the first time in 45 years a foreign-bred horse had won the Tenno Show Autumn. He'd beaten Japan's best specialist at a distance he shouldn't have handled on a surface he wasn't supposed to prefer.
And they weren't done. Just a month later, they took him on the road.
To Hong Kong. And he wins again. The Hong Kong Cup. His third straight G1.
Let's recap that. G1 dirt win locally, G1 turf win at a new distance in Tokyo, G1 turf win internationally in Hong Kong, back to back to back.
On different surfaces, different distances, different countries. It's just unprecedented.
Which brings us neatly into 2002, where this incredible run gets officially cemented in the record book.
Yeah, he starts 2002 by winning the February Stakes. That's another G1. Back on the dirt in Tokyo.
So that made it 4 consecutive G1 wins. And look at the variety.
Nambu High Dirt, local circuit. Tenno Show, Autumn Turf, 2,000 meters, Tokyo. Hong Kong Cup Turf, International. February Stakes Dirt, mile, Tokyo.
Has any other horse ever done anything remotely like that?
Not that I can think of. Certainly not at the G1 level across such different disciplines.
Yeah.
It's a unique achievement.
But then came a slight stumble. Dubai.
Right, the Dubai World Cup. Sources mentioned some transport issues, things didn't go smoothly getting him there. He wasn't quite himself and finished 6th.
Okay, so a moment of vulnerability. Most teams would probably head home, regroup.
Not this team. Shirai decides, okay, Dubai didn't work out. Let's go straight to Hong Kong again for the Queen Elizabeth II Cup.
Which caused another problem, right? Because of JRA rule.
A big problem.
Yeah.
Going directly from Dubai to Hong Kong like that, it broke quarantine and travel regulations set by the Japan Racing Association. Very strict rules.
So Shirai actually had to go plead his case directly with the JRA president, asking for a special exception.
He did, which is a huge deal. You don't generally challenge the JRA. But Shirai argued for his horse, for the chance to compete, and incredibly, he won. They granted the exception.
Amazing persistence. And how did the horse respond?
He ran his heart out. Finished a really brave second, right behind Aishin Preston, another great Japanese horse.
And that second place was still significant, wasn't it?
Hugely. It gave Japan its first ever 1-2 finish in a major overseas G1 race. So even in defeat, Agnes Digital was still part of making history for Japanese racing.
Incredible. Okay, so moving into 2003, he's 5 years old now, which is getting on a bit for a top-level racehorse, but he's still not done.
Not by a long shot. He goes back to the Yasuda Kennen, Japan's biggest mile race on turf. And he doesn't just win it.
He smashes the record time, a record held by Oguri Cap, another legend.
Exactly. And that victory sealed something truly special. It meant he was the first horse ever to win all 4 of Japan's major G1 mile races, the 2 big ones on turf and the 2 big ones on dirt.
Wow. Complete domination of the mile category, regardless of surface.
Plus, it meant he'd won G1 races 4 years running. Only a tiny handful of horses have ever managed that kind of sustained elite performance. 5 seasons at the top.
And then for his very last race, they did something, well, typical for them, I guess. Completely illogical.
The Arima Kinnan. They stretched him out to 2,500 meters. Way, way further than his best distance.
Why? Just because they could.
Seems like it. Shirai called it an experiment. He finished 9th, but honestly, the result didn't matter by then. It was just one last act of defiance against typecasting. A final henshin.
So when you try to sum up his career, his legacy, it's kind of mind-bending.
It really is. He raced effectively from 1,200 meters, which is a sprint, all the way up to that 2,500-meter attempt. He conquered dirt, conquered turf, won at home, won abroad. He basically forced all the specialists out of their comfort zones.
The JRA gave him the official title, the Brave One, which fits, but those fan nicknames, the Weirdo, the Freak, maybe Digital Madness.
Or just henshin. They capture that revolutionary, almost chaotic brilliance he had. He just refused to fit in any box.
He really proved that greatness doesn't have to mean finding one perfect niche. It can also mean, adaptability, incredible courage, and just heart. And maybe that unique physical gift to handle anything thrown at him.
Yeah. He retired after that 2003 season, went on to be a decent sire, especially of dirt horses, interestingly enough, and he passed away in 2021, lived to a good age of 24.
A truly remarkable story. But his whole career was defined by breaking rules and defying expectations. So here's something for you to think about.
Okay.
If Shirai hadn't taken all those risks, if he'd kept Agnes Digital focused purely on dirt, where he started and was clearly brilliant, would he have been remembered as an even greater dirt specialist? Or was it precisely that unpredictable, surface-hopping, distance-defying madness that made him the unforgettable legend he became?
That's a great question. Did the versatility make him, or would specialization have made him better on paper?
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more.